What moment changed your life forever? When I married my wife, I never thought I'd be happier, but that changed the day we had our daughter. Every morning started the same. I'd wake up to her barreling down the hallway, all tangled hair and sleepy eyes, launching herself into bed between us with a giggle. My wife would mumble something about 5 more minutes and I'd pull the covers over all 3 of us. I worked long days as a mechanic. She taught 2nd grade and came home with glitter in her hair and stories about kids who asked if sharks had knees. We had a small house with a backyard tomato garden and a sunflower patch she called her jungle. On weekends, we made pancakes in pajamas and took walks to the park where our daughter fed ducks with serious concentration. We hung our goofy photos on the fridge, crooked and cluttered, and we laughed at jokes that would never make sense to anyone else. My wife had a way of making everything feel lighter. She always hummed, remembering birthdays, even for people I forgot existed. Sometimes I'd catch her brushing her teeth or folding laundry, and I'd just stop and think, how is this my life? That morning started like all the others. She was tying her shoes, humming, jeans splattered with paint from the craft project she and our daughter had made the night before. She kissed me, smiled, and told me not to forget to defrost the chicken. Then she walked out the door. She never came home. A driver ran a red light while texting. She had just picked up groceries. When the police knocked, I knew before they even said her name. They spoke softly, like they were trying not to break it. I stood there nodding, not hearing them. My daughter was still asleep in the other room. When she woke up, I had to tell her something that didn't even make sense in my own mouth. The funeral didn't feel real. People brought casseroles and awkward hugs. They told me she was in a better place. None of it helped. After the house emptied, the silence got louder. I couldn't cook without crying. I couldn't open the fridge without seeing that chicken she told me to defrost and feeling like the world had shattered. I stopped eating. Let dishes pile up. Our daughter started sleeping in my bed every night. She hardly spoke anymore. The girl who used to twirl through the living room in sparkly capes now just sat quietly, poking at her cereal. She started wetting the bed and refused to go to school. She stopped mentioning her mom at all, and that broke me more than anything. I tried to be strong, but I wasn't. I started drinking after she fell asleep. At first it was just 1 beer. Then 2. Then I moved to whiskey. I told myself it was temporary, just until things got easier, but nothing got easier. One night she asked if we could go to the beach. That had always been our spot. I hadn't been back since the funeral. I almost said no, but how she looked at me made me grab the keys. We drove in silence. When we arrived, she ran straight for the sand, dug out a crooked little castle, and carefully placed a seashell on top. She looked at me and said, "This one's for Mommy." I dropped to my knees and sobbed. I couldn't stop. I felt her little arms wrap around my shoulders, and she said nothing. She just held me, and that was enough. That night, I poured the liquor down the drain. I woke up early the next day and made breakfast. I watched a video on braid hair and got better at it. I started walking her to school and waited in the car until she was safely inside. I joined a grief group and kept showing up, even when it felt impossible. Years later, she stood on a stage at her high school graduation and gave a speech. She spoke about her mother with so much grace, and then she looked at me and said, "And my dad, who became my safe place when everything else fell apart." I cried again, but this time it wasn't because of the pain. This time, it was because I finally knew we would be okay.